For as long as I can remember, the plight of the Iranian people has been a weight that I have carried. As an Iranian born and raised in New Jersey who has never even stepped foot on Iranian soil, I felt a powerful inclination my whole life to tell the story, the real story of the Iranian people. As journalists, we are observers. We deliver the facts and we also play a role as a witness, as a translator, as the shaper of narratives and opinions. Like many of you, I felt a jolting pain upon hearing about the story of Mahsa Jina Amini. I vividly remember how difficult it was to report on this mere 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian girl who lost her life at the hands of violent radicals just for showing a little bit of her hair. Day in and out, we all felt our hearts collapse as we watched these casualties. Young Iranians thrown off buildings, being rounded up at universities, losing their lives just for speaking up for their freedoms. Although I've been a journalist covering stories around the world for years in Syria and Iraq and Yemen and Egypt and China and Saudi Arabia, I was on the periphery, thousands of miles away. This time, as I watched the young people on the streets in my parents' homeland, my inheritance, this time, as I watched the beating of Mahsa and many others at the hand of the regime, I wasn't just a journalist or an observer. This time, I was part of the story. And there are two stories, one of which what was going on in the streets of Iran and around the world with followers cutting their hair in support and tweeting encouragement for Iranian women and men who were risking their lives for liberty. The other story was happening right here in the United States and in Europe and in the UN and many other useless human rights organizations and also in the media. So many of us ask the simple question, why don't the people of Iran, a women's-led movement, why don't they deserve international support? Where are the so-called champions of women's rights? Where are the supporters of human rights? As far as the index of causes go, wouldn't this one be one that warranted full international support? As the weeks and the months went by, there was an additional travesty we all witnessed that culminated on October 7th, 2023, with the barbaric and cowardly Hamas attack against Israel. All of a sudden, it wasn't just silence around the world regarding the crimes of the mullahs. There was actually full-on support in the streets of London and Paris, New York, Washington, and even Los Angeles. In the media, among the most prestigious platforms, there was support, and even in the White House. So how did the mullahs draw in so many supporters around the world? How is it that those very individuals who would be arrested or even hanged in Iran for showing their blue hair or practicing homosexuality or for dressing provocatively, for demanding free speech or posting on their social media pages, they were the ones now actually supporting the regime and terrorism? And so many of us here have been baffled. How did this happen? Instead of the people of the West fighting these influences of the Islamic Republic and removing them from the Middle East, they found their way here to the West, to the United States, to Europe, to our universities, to our media, to our think tanks, our lobbies, and our rights groups. They have fooled an entire generation to believe that if you respect social justice, if you believe in gay rights and trans rights and Black rights and women's rights, then you don't side with the modern, progressive, freedom-seeking people of Iran. You side with the terrorists. So how did they do this? How did they find those willing to support their radicalism abroad? How did they intertwine their agenda with those who believe, those who are championing and protesting and demonstrating, who believe this is what is right? They did so because they found allies. They found those willing to say that Westernism is so bad, that our country's history here is so bad that we are willing to carry the narrative of the enemy, and we're willing to do so by any cost. Don't get me wrong, it takes both sides. It's not just the regime that has been shrewd enough to launch a successful influence campaign to brainwash the West and do its dirty work. It's also the useful idiots of the West who are not only willing to take on the task, but in whitewashing the crimes of the regime, they have actually canceled the victims of the regime. In other words, if the Islamic Republic, if Hamas, if Hezbollah are not evil oppressors, then there can be no victims of these groups. There's no women, there are no children, there are no prisoners. And with that, they have managed to drown out the voices of the Iranian people and anyone else seeking out or speaking out against these horrific influences, whether it's in the media, on our college campuses, and even in the White House for the last 4 years. The good news is we have allies too. Let's start with Washington. There are lawmakers in Washington who have been bought by the regime, and there are those who understand its dangers, whether it's for the Iranian people or the region or the entire world. We have to identify these individuals and work better with them to advance the cause of the Iranian people. When I first started my work years ago, when I would write about the effectiveness of sanctions or how we should say no to a nuclear deal, Iranians from all around the world would get angry at these positions. They felt that sanctions would just punish the Iranian people and that a nuclear deal was a source of national pride. But now, more of the Iranian people understand that we have to use these diplomatic tools better to pressure the regime. But it's not too late. We now have an administration in place that can better accommodate these strategies. We just have to pressure them to do so. Next, there's independent media. We don't have to rely on traditional media that is compromised and most often works against the narratives of the freedom-seeking people of Iran. And because of the power of the people on social media, because of the power we have, one clip by an independent journalist can make a difference. So tweet and repost and share. Every one of us plays a role in this fight. We also have allies in the Middle East. Our allies in the region are those who are no strangers to terrorism, to radicalism, to futures that are destroyed by extremist Islamist ideology. Maybe they don't work to save the Iranian people, but they're working to save themselves from the Islamic Republic's advancements, and for that reason we can work together. As proven by the Abraham Accords, these are the moderate Arab nations who don't want to take Israel off the map. They don't want to see the mullah's ideology spread throughout the continent. They don't want radicalism to destroy their own countries. And most importantly, they're united on one thing, the desire for a prosperous future in the Middle East. That is why they're our allies. There are those who want the Islamic Republic and the likes of Hezbollah and Hamas and ISIS and Al-Qaeda eradicated from the Middle East forever. They are those who understand that the freedom-seeking Israeli and Iranian and Saudi have more in common with each other than with the scheming radicals who try to divide them with their deadly ideologies. And we have our history, our heritage, our miras. We have thousands of years of a celebrated story of the Persian people that motivates us to continue fighting. The last 46 years do not define us as a people. The thousands of years before it do. This is worth fighting for. And we have the Pahlavi family, Shahbanu Farah Pahlavi and her son, Prince Reza Pahlavi, and his wife, Princess Yasmin Pahlavi. Individuals who not only symbolize our nation's rich history and culture and civilization, but figures who are willing to pave the way to our freedom with their determination and vision for a free and secular democratic Iran. Last week, I had the distinct honor of interviewing Prince Reza at a conference in Los Angeles before more than 1,000 CEOs and venture capitalists and those working in tech and AI and robotics. Our interview focused solely on the economic potential of a free and democratic Iran. We didn't talk about human rights. We didn't talk about nuclear weapons. We didn't talk about terrorism. Our conversation only focused on what mattered to the audience. How would a free and democratic Iran benefit them? What would be the opportunities? What would be the GDP? What sectors would investors be able to invest in? What would be its exports? It was a tremendous discussion for the world to see not only what Iran was before 1979, but what it can be in 2026. And what a juxtaposition for the world to see Prince Reza Pahlavi, the man who Iranians are calling for on the streets, a man of great knowledge and depth and vision, with political, economic, and social competence. Compare that to the mullahs who are ruling Iran today. So let the world see. Let us have more of these powerful conversations before the world. Let us teach them and inspire them and empower them to join our fight, because it's worth it. And the biggest weapon of all, our biggest ally, is you, the Iranian people. And more specifically, because we are here in celebration of Women's Day, I want to directly address the brave and unparalleled women of Iran. As much as you felt that your efforts have been in vain, they have not. As much as you have felt that your movement was lost, it was not. We are in awe of your bravery, but more than anything, we are in awe of your drive and perseverance in getting our country back. Each movement does not have a beginning and an end. These are just different stanzas in our 46-year quest for freedom. We also want you to know that we're here and you are there, but this revolution hurts us too. If I speak from personal experience, from a young age, I would ask my mother why we lived here instead of Iran. I went to school without knowing a word of English. I've always felt that part of my heart is here, is with you, thousands of miles away. But just like you and many of us who were born after the revolution, we never lived under the Shah. But we have a faux nostalgia of what that time was like. It was romantic, it was free, it was a time for music and poetry and dance and expression. I see my mother's pictures in her jeans and her platforms, and I dream about an Iran I had wished to see. An Iran that was held in esteem around the world, an Iran that made each of us so proud. Instead, we were raised with qam ghurbat, a distinct awareness that we are living outside our country. So many of us look to our parents' generation and wonder, how did they let this happen? But we are also inspired by our parents' generation to not let this continue, and we won't. We will get our country back. We promise to echo your voices. We promise to never leave you alone. We promise to match your courage on the streets with our own tireless efforts to make your voices heard in Washington and in the media and in the halls of the UN. But our only request to you is not to give up. Not for any president or any war, any crackdowns or any Friday sermons. Our fight is one that is supported by natural rights, by logic, and ultimately by God. And when others become fatigued or discouraged by the fight, it is only you, the Iranian women, who have the stamina and the unwavering vision to do what no one else can do. Get our country back. In the last 3 years, it was you, the women of Iran, who were able to get the world's attention as you took off your hijab, as you danced in the streets, as you cut your hair in public, knowing it could cost you your life. And for many of you, it did. But you earned the respect and the attention of so many around the world. To every courageous Iranian woman listening now, I want to leave you with this message. Do not give up hope. For centuries, you've been the heart and soul of Iran, its strength, its resilience, its unrelenting force for change. Our history celebrates women like you, women who have never wavered in the face of oppression, who refused to be silenced, who have time and time again stood up to shape a freer, brighter future. You are not alone. You can count on us as allies, as partners, as steadfast supporters in this shared endeavor for a free Iran. We stand with you shoulder to shoulder across every border and barrier, united by our vision of equality and justice and freedom. If anyone can achieve this monumental change, it is you, the women of Iran. Our history, your history tells us this. Your power and your courage, your unshakable spirit have proven it before, and we will do it again. Never stop believing in yourself, never stop fighting for what is right, and never forget, you hold the key to Iran's future. You are the change makers and the leaders and the voices that will echo through time. History books will write volumes about your exemplary heroism. So thank you. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for inspiring the world. Together, we will see a free Iran. Together, we will celebrate the victory of your relentless spirit and what it will bring for us all. Payande Iran.